to you live from deep in the mountains of the Missouri Ozarks. On Monday, the 9th day of December, year of our Lord 2019, welcome to the John Moore Show. We begin our shows with something that should be said in the House Judiciary Committee every morning, but won't be said because I believe the majority is not patriots. That's my opinion. We begin our shows with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Our preparative today, with what's coming, I got further confirmation from a private source over the weekend, the possibility of civil war in the not-too-distant future, about 9 months into the future. I think people should be checking their preps on a regular basis. That would be food, water, medical supplies, ammunition, and anything else you think you need, communications equipment, and so forth. That's your prepper tip of the day. This is Farmers Monday. We have patient way in the green room, my friend Sam Andrews. Sam is the proprietor of Freedom Center USA. The telephone number is, I don't have the phone number here, but the Facebook page is Freedom Center USA. Good morning, Sam.
Good morning, John.
And here's that phone number. It's 417-718-2597. Well, sir, you had a competition over the weekend. How did it go, sir?
Oh, it was an amazing weekend. I can't tell you how excited I am about the way the matches turned out. It was interesting because we had some records broken. We had some side bets and some shots on movers at incredible distances. And we had a young lady who was 10 years old that just warmed the hearts of every shooter on the range on Saturday. It was just a phenomenal weekend, had great weather, and the competition was furious. And it was just a fantastic weekend all the way around.
Well, great. And how many competitors did you have, sir?
Oh, I think we've had now probably around 21 total. And the interesting thing was we had on Saturday the 1,000-yard accuracy type competitions. We had a small group competition and we had a score competition. So the first competition, whoever could shoot the smallest 5-shot group would advance to the next round. We did a double elimination draw. And in the second competition, we had a score competition where you had to hit the 10 ring, and whoever hit the 10 ring the most often had the highest score advanced to the next round. So the first one was about repeatability and precision. The second match was about accuracy. You had to hit the mark. And we had, a 10 ring, a 9 ring, an 8 ring, a 7 ring on that target. And there was a young girl there, 10 years old, shooting a 6-dash shoot, who shot 3 shots into the X ring, which is half the size of the 10 ring at 1,000 yards.
Well, that's incredible for anybody, let alone a 10-year-old boy or girl. It's just phenomenal. And who was her coach, her instructor? I'm kind of curious.
Well, her father and mother have been teaching her and coaching her, and she's a smart, happy, well-parented, tough-minded, competitive young lady. And she's been raised the right way, and she's a patriotic American. So are her parents, so are her uncles and grandparents. And it's just a phenomenal thing to watch her get in there with the men and compete with a rifle at 1,000 yards. And I'm telling you, she touched the heart of everybody there. And what was really amazing, the best part of the weekend was at the end of the match on Saturday, everybody was sitting around, and I guess we had 15 to 25 spectators. And I said to her, and we nicknamed her El Tigre, which basically means the tiger. And right. I said to her, El Tigre, I've got a bet for you. I'll go down and grab a target and walk down to 300 yards, and I'll get in the pits behind the berm at 300 yards, and I'll bet you $20 Matter of fact, you don't even have to pay. I'll give you $20 if you can hit the center of the orange target with me walking a mover at 312 yards. And she said, okay. And she got behind her gun, and I went down in the pits. And I'll be darned if she didn't hit the center of that target with me walking at a fairly brisk pace at 312 yards on the very first shot. And so I brought the target back to her with the $20 bill stapled to it. And she had this huge smile on her face, and she was jumping up and down and high-fiving her grandparents and all that stuff. And she walked up to the target, and she didn't even look at her bullet hole. I mean, for a half a second, she reached up to grab the $20 bill, and her mom said, no, leave it there. I want to put it in the scrapbook. And she said, Mom, I want the $20 bill.
I bet. Well, see, a 10-year-old would be, what, 5th grade, 4th grade? What would
I have no idea. I would think 4th grade.
Yeah.
And it was just, and it was so funny that her mom turned the phone camera on to video her, and she says, and I'll never forget these words, she says, my 6 Dasher has more recoil than an AR-15, but I can still hit a moving target at 312 yards. And she said this on video, and her mom filmed it. It was just priceless.
Now, and what caliber rifle was this young lady shooting?
6 Dasher.
I'm not familiar with that.
It's a little bit larger than a 223, and it's a little bit smaller than a 308. It's or 243. Let's just say 243. So 223 has about 26 grains of powder capacity, and a 243 has about 44 grains of powder capacity. And the cartridge she's shooting is in between those two in size. It's right in the middle, just a little over 30 grains.
Amazing, absolutely amazing. Well, I'm kind of speechless. There's almost no men that can do what she did. I mean, seriously. What I've been telling people, and I was at your precision marksman class, entry level, not this past weekend, but the weekend before. I learned more the first half hour than I learned the last half century when it comes to marksmanship, cleaning the rifle, and related matters. Well, good for her. Is she some distance away that she can't be there on a regular basis?
No, she only lives about 7 miles from the range, and so her dad's there shooting all the time, and she comes out and shoots with her dad and just has a grand time. And boy, is she developing some skill at an early age. It's just great to see.
That's amazing. Well, we're looking forward to hearing what the firearms tip of the week would be, sir.
Well, the firearms tip of the week is to find a place to practice shooting moving targets. You know, if a 10-year-old girl can hit a moving target at 300 yards, you should be able to do that. That should be a tool that you have in your toolbox. So you need to get to a range that has a pit behind a berm where someone can walk with a target, jog with a target safely, and be protected. And so what we do at the Freedom Center is we get these long PVC poles, and we screw a 1 by 3 inch board with 4 wood screws through the wood, through the PVC pole. And then we take a piece of cardboard and we staple it to that wood, and we staple a target on that piece of cardboard. And you can walk, jog, and run with these behind a large berm, and it'll stick up 5 feet above the berm, and you're completely safe behind the berm, walking these targets and making them move. That's one cheap, easy way to practice shooting moving targets. And that was, by the way, in our sniper competition on Sunday. That was the last event, because that's the most difficult thing to do. It incorporates all of the skills that you need as a tactical marksman. We had the last evolution of this match. We had movers at 300 behind the 300-yard berm, and we had movers behind the 800-yard berm. And we would start the movers, pop them up, and start them moving across the berm at 300. And when they got about halfway across at 300, we would call for the 800-yard targets to come up and them to move. And it was just a great setup because you had to instantly go from 300 to 800 yards and shoot multiple targets at multiple ranges that were actually moving. And if you can do that as a marksman, you have your act together. And we had several people that were successful.
Outstanding. Well, I'll be working to engineer some moving targets at my 100-yard range, 125-yard range, and it's a skill that it never occurred to me. I've shot, moving targets with 22s up to 50 yards for decades, but to do something at that range has been pretty phenomenal for me and a real wake-up call. We got a caller on hold here, Sam. We got John in Florida. Good morning, John.
Yes, I just tuned in. I know you talk about doing 1,000-yard shots, but I'm down here in West Palm Beach, and we don't have ranges to even think about anything like that. But maybe if you were to do a show on, say, 22s, the 10-22, concealment, the proper scopes. I'm going to a show on the 21st here in it would be helpful, maybe some pointers on different scopes.
Okay,
I bought a breakdown. I bought a breakdown a few weeks back, and I put the backpacker stock on at the Magpul. And that's great. I like that.
John, let me ask you a question. Are you mainly planning on using the 22 as a defensive weapon, or are you using it for gathering food in a prepper situation? What's your intent with the 22 rifle?
More of a put it in the backpack, a prepper. Put my I get these the LARPs that you were selling, John, the freeze dry guy. Whatever happened to him, the freeze dry guy?
Well, he's. I haven't talked to the freeze dry guy for a while, so I don't have any follow up on that.
Yeah. Basically, just for a bug out bag. I mean, I got 30-06. I got all the other, all the good stuff, but for nighttime, and that's why I want to put. I called it about the night vision, and then you mentioned the thermo and all that. But basically, for a bug out situation, and that's why I bought the breakdown light. And looking for. Go ahead.
Are you thinking for your prepper backpack? Are you thinking like a red dot sight for 50 yards and in, or are you wanting a scope that might allow you to reach out a little further?
For this situation, 50 yards, and I've been looking at the red dots. I did buy the Vortex, the Strike Fire 2, I think it is, the 2x7, but it's too big for this. It's too big for this rifle. For what I want. I want something compact.
In your situation, I would highly recommend, for two reasons, since you're putting it in a bug out bag, is I would highly recommend an Aimpoint Comp M. And the reason is, the battery alone, you could leave the thing on its brightest setting, and the battery alone will last 7 years with the thing left on. It's absolutely incredible technology. It's an incredibly durable sight. It's literally the best expeditionary sight you could possibly have because the batteries last forever. The battery life on an Aimpoint Comp M, on a modern Aimpoint Comp M, it literally approaches the shelf life of the battery. That's how little power they need to light that red dot up. And it's incredibly durable. It handles recoil. It has excellent adjustment for point of aim. It's just a tough sight that will go the distance, and you can get it in several different dot sizes, and you have brightness settings that'll work with night vision and brightness settings that'll work in bright sunlight and everything in between. It's just the best done sight as far as something you can rely on to use in a difficult situation.
And what model number was that?
It's made by Aimpoint.
Aimpoint.
Yes. And it's
Aimpoint,
called
what model number?
Comp M. COMP. Charlie, Oscar, Mary, Papa. Comp M. And then Mary, the letter M. And you want to look at the Aimpoint Comp M. I would highly recommend that site.
Okay, that's the information I've been needing. So, because I was looking on the internet, and the Vortex, the 503 Strike Fire was one of the ones that they said was a good one, but the show, I'll look at the one. I'll write down. I'll re-listen in the archives, and I'll write down that information, and then I'll take a look at both. What was
the technology
I'm looking
is just ahead of everybody else, particularly from a battery usage. If you're talking about a red dot, and from a durability standpoint, they're just the premier red dot on the planet.
Okay, appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay, John, thank you for the call. The call number is 800-313-9443. Well, Sam, I got further confirmation over the weekend from a gentleman who's feeds information to the various intelligence services. I need to protect his identity, but his personal concern is that there will be civil war around the time of the first Tuesday of November 2020. And one of my goals, and I believe you share my goal, is to help people become aware of that and be prepared between now and then to the best of their ability. What do you think?
Well, I think there's two basic scenarios that could play out. One is that Donald Trump is elected, and the Democrats have already stated, and the collectivists have already stated, there are going to be riots in the streets, there's going to be mayhem, there's going to be all of these problems. And that kind of thing can lead to very, very dangerous situations, particularly in the larger cities in the United States.
Absolutely. Here's our break. Call number is 800-313-9443.
Tired of being lied to by mass media? It's growing more and more apparent today that news is received less and less through standard media outlets. Even with a growing audience every day, RBN is beginning to direct more efforts into social media. Social media and the use of the internet is fast becoming the primary source of people for news, regardless of demographic. RBN has set out to provide some of the best news on the internet through republicbroadcasting.org, and also has begun to use the tools to our advantage by way of social media. Republic Broadcasting is now operating a Facebook page to function as yet another avenue to have our collective voice reach new audiences across not only America, but across the globe as well. The Facebook page features not only news, but also an RBN player to listen to our broadcasts. Get involved by visiting facebook.com/Republic Broadcasting and liking our page and share it with your friends and family, because you can handle the truth.
All right, we're back, ladies and gentlemen. J.R. Moore here on Monday. It is Monday, Fireman's Monday, the 9th day of December. Exactly 2 months from today, which would be February the 9th, our ship will be leaving Port Orlando, the John Moore Patriot Symposium Cruise. What a great time to be away from the snow, the cold, the wet, the ice, all that stuff. Yeah, a great time to be in the Caribbean. And I'll be speaking in Orlando on Saturday the 8th as well. Details at my website at thelibertyman.com. If you don't have internet access, you want to contact our cruise director, Betsy Murphy. I'll give her phone number twice slowly. That's Betsy Murphy, 636-530-9502. I say again, 636-530-9502. This is Fireman's Monday, visiting with Sam Andrews, the proprietor of Freedom Center USA. If you need help building a rifle, consultation, give Sam a call at 417-718-2597. Sam, we got a caller on hold here. Jerry in Texas taking a break from feeding his goats. Good morning, Jerry.
Good morning, John and Sam. And those just listening, I went back to archives Friday to listen to Tom and you, and I want to apologize to everybody. Stinking guineas follow me all over the place. I'm in the house. The reason it's so quiet this morning. But anyway, John, can you post that information on that little night site, red dot on your website somewhere where I can get that. I'm having a hard time understanding the whole information on that. Is there some way you can post that for us?
I can get that done. I'll talk to Sam and get that information, and I'll have my webmaster post it someplace where it's easily found.
Okay, I appreciate that. And y'all have a good day. Thanks for taking my call.
Okay, thank you. The call-in number is 800-313-9443. Well, Sam, sometimes it's difficult for people to get this information and write it down. We try our best, don't we?
Absolutely. Well, he can just give me a call, and I can send him one. You know, it's a simple thing.
Yeah, Jerry, I know you're listening. Just call Sam. That would be, because my webmaster has a lot to do without putting up something on a red dot site. So, Jerry, just give Sam a call at 417-718-2597. That's the most expedient way to get this thing done. Okay. Yeah, the firearms tip of the week. What was that, sir?
The firearms tip of the week was to get out and practice shooting moving targets. It's an important skill to have. If this country devolves, we were talking about two scenarios at the break, and we got to one, which is basically if Trump wins, we're probably going to have rioting in the larger cities. We're going to have civil unrest in the high population areas where there's a high density of Democrats. Probably not going to affect the conservative towns until things start to grow and get out of hand. But the other scenario, which I think ought to strike fear in the hearts of every American, is if the Democrats win the presidency, the Republicans that are not true conservatives, they're going to be turncoats. And you're going to see the Democrats, if they win the presidency in 2020, you're going to see them immediately come after people's rifles. They're going to come after all semi-auto rifles, then they're going to come after semi-auto shotguns, then they're semi-auto pistols, and this will all happen in a matter of 60 days. And this country will be in a completely polarized civil war in a matter of weeks. And I'm telling you, it could happen. It's completely plausible, especially with these electronic voting machines and how easy it is. You know, there was a Russian leader years ago, and his name was Khrushchev. And he's famous for saying, it doesn't matter who votes in an election. It only matters who counts the votes. And we're in a situation where over 30 states are using electronic voting machines where there's no audit trail and no real ability to count the votes properly. So things could get really interesting in less than 10 months in the United States of America.
Well, we're already seeing pushback in the form of county sheriffs and county commissions creating sanctuary counties. It's happening in Washington State. It's happening in the state of Virginia and probably other places I'm not aware of, that the county commission and the county sheriff are saying they will not enforce any unconstitutional firearms laws. So we're already seeing pushback right now, Sam, aren't we?
Well, did you see the story last week? And I was just trying to look that up on the internet. There was a Virginia sheriff that came out last week and said, I will deputize thousands of men in my county if anyone tries to confiscate guns here. And now when you have public elected sheriffs saying that to the news media at a press conference or otherwise, you know you're getting close. These are leading indicators that tell you that people are starting to take a position. They're starting to dig in their heels. And that's a problem. And the next step people will stop talking and they'll start sharpening their knives. So you'll have people posture up and they'll say, we're going to come take the guns. And then you'll have sheriffs saying, I'll deputize men in my county to fight that. And then it'll go silent for a little bit, and then things will erupt. And the real close to problem indicator is going to be when everybody goes silent.
Absolutely. We have a break. We'll be right back.
You are tuned in to the Republic Broadcasting Network. Visit our website by going to republicbroadcasting.org.
All right, we are back, ladies and gentlemen. We're back. Darren Moore here on Monday. It is Monday, the 9th day of December. My website is thelibertyman.com. My website is thelibertyman.com. And you'll find a lot of interesting things there, such as, well, what will you find there? The article I wrote about the possibility of a second American Civil War. That's one of the things you'll find there. I think you need to read that article. I really think you need to read that article. It was written about 3 months ago, and it's very insightful. Also, my website, if you have arthritis pain, you need an energy cleaner. Quite frankly, that's what you need, an energy cleaner. Joint pain, back pain, the same thing. If you want to get a great night's sleep, sleep as good as a small child every night like I do, get yourself an energy cleaner. Only $285, shipping included to American zip codes. I know hundreds of you listening to me already have one. What a great time to get a great gift for someone you care about who has arthritis pain. Check out the details at my website at thelibertyman.com, where you can place your order using PayPal, MasterCard, Visa. You send me a check, my address is right there, and I have a toll-free order line 24 hours a day. Here it is, 800-592-9543. I say again, 800-592-9543. This is Firearms Monday. We're visiting with Sam Andrews, the proprietor of Freedom Center USA. That Facebook page is Freedom Center USA. The telephone number down there in beautiful Lebanon, Missouri is 417-718-2597. Well, Sam, did we get to the second scenario very, very thoroughly there?
Well, I don't know. I just think that people have to understand that there is a globalist, collectivist agenda to reduce the population of the world from 8 billion to 2 billion. They believe that the Earth will not survive if there's more than 2 billion people, or they want to believe that. And that morally justifies them reducing the population by 6 billion people. In other words, they don't really want your guns. They want you off their planet. And the American gun owner is in the way of their agenda. So they need to take the guns away before they can execute their planned genocide. And we're just not going to let that happen. I mean, plain and simple, it's just not going to happen.
Right.
These people are going to be swinging from trees before it's all over.
Well, there's a article at my website. It's a translation of a speech given by the top Chinese general to his top generals. Never meant to be outside the purview of the communist leadership, but we got our hands on it. It's been translated, and it's posted at my website, and what he says basically is parallel to what you said. The Chinese want America. They want what we've got, but they don't want Americans. They want our real estate. They want a functioning infrastructure where they can grow food and have locks and dams at work, airports and oil refineries at work, power plants, water treatment plants, airports, everything functional. They don't want a nuclear wasteland. They want a functional country for their people. And that's what he says. And there's no beating around the bush. He's very clear about what their goals are, Sam.
Well, I mean, take Jerry Nadler. He's a Republican or a Democrat from New York, right? And he said, we cannot wait 4 years to vote Mr. Trump out of office. We must keep our eyes on two important goals: depressing Trump's public support and dividing the congressional GOP from him and from each other. And so the impeachment process, all of these different things, they're really not about Trump's corruption. They're about protecting the corruption of the establishment. And these people will kill for less than $1 million. And Trump's policies are taking billions of dollars out of their pockets. They're not going to wait a whole lot longer. And the last thing on earth they want is Trump to be reelected, or for conservatives to take back the House. I mean, we are at the crux of a political battle that is the battle of the ages as far as planet Earth is going. And if these globalists and collectivists take over, things like the Matrix are going to be kindergarten recess compared to what's going on planet Earth in 10 years. People need to wake up and pay attention. This is not a game. We're not playing with Monopoly money here. We're playing with the real thing. And so people need to get ready. They need to be smart about it. They need to pay attention to the leading indicators that are going on.
Absolutely. Well, going back to I agree with you, absolutely. Going back to the 10-year-old girl who performed so well, that reminds me of something I personally observed. This would have been in Vietnam in 1967. I was at the National Police Pistol Range with my 1911 45 and my Thompson carbine and doing some practice. And this Vietnamese officer, I think he was a field grade officer, I believe a field grade. I think he was a major. He shows up with his wife. Now, this woman was probably about 4'11", maybe 5 feet, maybe 90, 95 pounds. Probably not much bigger than this 10-year-old girl. And she took a 1911 45 caliber pistol, and she was putting lead down range, and she was hitting the 10 ring. And I was just so proud of her to see her ability to do what many men can't do with this heavy 100-year-old pistol, the 1911, which is my favorite pistol. Point being, ladies and gentlemen, size does not matter. We have over the weekend, the past 2 days, a 10-year-old girl shooting better than 99% of the adult men in this country. Would that be a fair statement, Sam, that 99% of the adult men in this country who shoot can't shoot as well as this 10-year-old girl?
I would say that's probably 100% true based on what I saw. And part of it's equipment, part of it's training, part of it's practice, but the root issue is in your heart. Do you have the desire to acquire the skill? Because if you have that desire, it's imminently possible, and it's actually more than possible, it's probable. All you have to do is get to a facility, talk to the right people, get the right equipment, the right ammunition, the right optics, and spend a little time on the range practicing. It's not complicated. It just takes a little bit of time and a little bit of effort, and your heart's desire has to be, I want to be more proficient with my rifle. It starts with you as a person having the desire to improve. And with modern technology, it's just waiting for you to take the next step. Honestly, it's just you making the decision, I'm going to get better at this, and I'm going to go do the things that I need to do, talk to the right people, and get this going. And it's so doable now, where 30 years ago it would be a very difficult thing. There was a very small number of people who could help you. And now the technology and the ammunition and the bullets and the quality of the powders and primers, I mean, all of this is so easy to do now relative to 30 or 40 years ago.
Sam, there was a Disney film made back when Walt Disney was alive and homosexuals were not running Disney productions back in the 50s, called Johnny Tremaine. And it has to do with the Revolutionary War and the battle at Lexington and Concord. And it was a fairly historically accurate portrayal where following the battles, the Brits were marching back to Boston. And these Americans were basically farmers and merchants and just guys. You know, they weren't soldiers, but they had rifles. And all along the way of the march back to Boston, the men would run up ahead of the Brits who were marching in order with their bright red coats and the red X across their chest. And they would take some shots at them and hit a few. And then they'd run up again through the forest and get up ahead of them and shoot them again and again and again. All the way back to Boston. Point being, over 200 years ago, this country began with just regular guys with their rifles that they owned for whatever purpose they owned them for, probably hunting, going up against the world's most powerful army at the time. The British Army was at the time the world's largest, most powerful, best trained, best equipped, best supplied army on the planet, with their squirrel rifles, basically, and prevailing. It was a long war, but we did prevail. And it was American marksmen that helped win that war, wasn't it, Sam?
Absolutely. It was the American marksmen that won the war, and that's the way a lot of wars are won. You know, it's something, when you're defending your homeland, you absolutely want to have a number of people, a large number, and I think there's probably over 77 million people in America that own guns and shoot. And it's just a little bit of extra effort to learn how to shoot with what we call strategically and tactically standoff capability. So if the average guy can shoot to 300 yards or 400 yards effectively, well, if you get in a conflict, you want to be able to shoot effectively from 800 yards, because Absolutely. That means you win the battle. And it's important to understand that a little standoff capability is really, really useful in those conflict situations. It's worth the extra effort. It really is.
Sam, I'm aware of officials. I won't be any more specific than that. Officials who are right now, as we speak, on the 9th day of December, making plans to evacuate critical records such as real estate records, tax records, marriage certificate records, court records, to safe locations away from courthouses. That's how serious this is. That's happening right now. This is not some make-believe conspiracy theory. That's what officials are doing right now, Sam.
Yeah, I completely understand. There are people that sort of know people that are in these higher-up political organizations, and they catch little bits and pieces of what's going on, and they see the polarization of this country. And, personally, I think it's probably time to thin the herd. I mean, we've got some real problems in this country, and I don't think any type of governmental leadership will solve the problems. I think in this country, government has done nothing but create problems. And so we need a lot less government influence. We need a lot more freedom. And that's not going to happen without a major conflict. And I wish I had a solution. I wish I had a way around it, because the last thing you want in a country is a civil war. We need to avoid that at all costs. The problem is the globalists and the collectivists keep pushing us that direction. They keep pushing us toward the civil war. They keep encroaching on people's freedoms. And you see that all over the globe. It's not just in America. You see it in Hong Kong. You see it in Venezuela. You see it in France. You're starting to see it in Great Britain and Italy. There's this pushing back, and the media is not covering it. They're not showing these things to the general population because they're afraid it'll catch on like wildfire.
Well, it's catching on anyway because of the modern communications that we've got with instant communication, people communicating what's going on, what's really going on. And a friend of mine told me 20 years, Sam, he said, the New World Order will destroy the Internet, or the Internet will destroy the New World Order. That was his statement, and it's proven to be very true, hasn't it?
Yeah, that's an interesting piece. And they created these phones as listening devices. The NSA can turn your camera on your phone. They can listen to what you say on your phone. Google can listen to what you say on your phone. These are listening devices. These are surveillance devices, these cell phones. And what was really interesting in Ferguson is they had all these surveillance devices and these electronic warfare phone jammers and camera jammers and all this stuff up in Ferguson. A lot of it was made by Harris Corporation in Florida. And they were using these devices against the people. But what was really interesting was the people were using these devices in a way that allowed them to outmaneuver the government, the Army, National Guard, and the police forces. And so the protesters were using the technology better than the government was. And it was a fascinating ebb and flow. I watched for 3 weeks in Ferguson in 2014 the way this stuff played out. And I suspect if Ferguson's a leading indicator, technology will be the death of the globalists. It's not going to. The masses will figure out how to use this technology and adapt quicker than the government structures because of the bureaucracy and the layered power structure. So it's going to get really interesting. But the point that I want to make in this long segment is, if you're a man and you read, there's a book called Margin of Victory, The 5 Battles That Changed the Face of Modern War. And if for no other reason, you need to read this book, because it explains to you how the decisions the leadership of these countries made a year ahead of time, 2 years ahead of time, 3 years ahead of time. These decisions decided who won the battle. The battle was not won on the battlefield. The battlefield was won and lost based on the decisions to prepare ahead of time. And that's a really important concept to understand.
The full title of the book is Margin of Victory, 5 Battles That Changed the Face of Modern War. The author is Douglas McGregor. But Kindle price is $19.22. Hardcover, $105.86.
Well, I've got a hardcover, and I read it, and I thought it was pretty well done. But the
that's
book
used.
has...
That's used, by the way. That's a used copy, $105.
Yes.
A new copy is $178.98.
Oh wow! I guess it's out of print, and
it might be.
not out, 'cause I think I paid $19.99 for my hardback copy.
Yep.
But it's a great book, and if you literally read it with an open mind, you can't help but come away from this book understanding that the decisions you make ahead of time will really decide if you survive, or if your society survives, or your way of life survives. It will be the decisions you make before this conflict coming to America will decide whether we win or lose. And I want you to make the right decisions. I want you to be ready. I want you to have the right equipment, the right training. I want you to be absolutely prepared to deal with what's coming so that it's not traumatic and terrible. And we want the good guys to win, let's be honest.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We're going to break here shortly, and when we go back from the break, let's talk about one of the founding fathers of precision marksmanship when we get back. We like to do that every week, too.
I'll do that.
Okay. Well, this conversation is something people need to hear. They really do need to hear it, and need to pay heed. Failure to pay heed, well, there'll be consequences for that, won't there, Sam?
Yes, and our master's moment, as far as men that have affected the rifle industry. Today, when we come back, we're going to talk about Carlos Hathcock, one of my former instructors.
One of my. I wish I could have met the man, Carlos Hathcock. After the break, we'll talk about Carlos.
Tired of being lied to by mass media? It's growing more and more apparent today that news is received less and less through standard media outlets. Even with a growing audience every day, RBN is beginning to direct more efforts into social media. Social media and the use of the internet is fast becoming the primary source of people for news, regardless of demographic. RBN has set out to provide some of the best news on the internet through republicbroadcasting.org, and also has begun to use the tools to our advantage by way of social media. Republic Broadcasting is now operating a Facebook page to function as yet another avenue to have our collective voice reach new audiences across not only America, but across the globe as well. The Facebook page features not only news, but also an RBN player to listen to our broadcast. Get involved by visiting facebook.com/Republic Broadcasting and liking our page and share it with your friends and family, because you can handle the truth.
All right, we are back, ladies and gentlemen. J.R. Moore here on Firearms Monday, the 9th day of December. Carlos Hathcock, country boy, grew up barefoot in Arkansas. Let's talk about Carlos here, Sam.
Okay. Carlos Hathcock is a really interesting man. He grew up in Wynne, Arkansas, not too far from Little Rock, not far from the Freedom Center, actually, less than 3.5 hours away. And he liked to hunt at an early age with a .22. He got interested in rifles and that sort of thing. He joined the Marine Corps at a very young age, at the age of 17. And one of the interesting things about Carlos Hathcock, and I wish more of our military snipers would take this approach, But Carlos liked to compete with a rifle. He wasn't afraid to get out in a civilian population and compete. And in fact, he's one of the few government snipers that actually won the Camp Perry 1,000-yard match and the Wimbledon match, which is a 1,000-yard scope match at Camp Perry. He actually won that as a competitor. And he was a tremendous marksman. But his real gift was fieldcraft. Carlos was like a layman psychologist. He understood human psychology. He understood human behavior. And that made him a tremendous hunter of men. And he was extremely dangerous to the enemy. And he was a little bit arrogant. He actually put a white feather in his hat, which in the jungles of Vietnam was really not a smart thing to do because it was something that would get you identified.
That was his nickname, White Feather.
Yeah, the Vietnamese, the Viet Cong called him Long Trang, which translates to white feather, because they got glimpses of him occasionally and got to see that white feather in his cap. But they never got a chance to shoot him. Now, they came close, and one of his most famous shots was shooting a guy through the scope and the eyeball. He shot the other sniper, and the bullet went through the lens of his scope and hit the guy in the head. And which, back in those days, the scopes didn't have a lot of lenses and really thick glass. It was eminently doable. There was a show on Mythbusters that said it was impossible, but they didn't use his ammunition, and they didn't shoot through the type of scope that he shot through. So I actually believe that he's telling the truth on that one. And I got to meet Carlos Hathcock in the 1980s. I was sent to Gunsight Training Center for a sniper training course, and I had Carlos as an instructor, and he was a very quiet man at that point in his life. When he spoke very emphatically. He had a deep southern drawl. He sounded like a country boy when he spoke, and he spoke at a fairly slow pace. And everybody listened. When Carlos spoke, you listened. And when he talked about human behavior, you listened. When he talked about fieldcraft, you listened. And like I said, he is one of the all-time great stories in American rifleman history. He was a military sniper for the Marine Corps. He worked in Vietnam, had 95 confirmed kills. He won the Wimbledon Cup, which is the most prestigious at the time, back in 1965 at Camp Perry. That was the match everybody wanted to win, the best shooters
Absolutely.
in the world win.
Hold it. We'll continue with Carlos after the break. All right, we're back, ladies and gentlemen. Jerry Moore here on Firearms Monday, the 9th day of December. The prep tip of the day is to check your preps, your food, your water, medical supplies, ammunition, assorted other things that you think you may need. Make sure that everything's in good condition, properly stored, and ready for use. This is Firearms Monday. Visiting with Sam Andrews, the proprietor of Freedom Center USA. The Facebook page is Freedom Center USA. The telephone number down there in beautiful Lebanon, Missouri is 417-718-2597. Well, Sam, I read Carlos's book, and I saw some video interviews of him. I didn't get to meet the gentleman personally. I wish I could have while he was still alive, but that didn't happen. And it's one of the things that impressed me. He'd be out on an operation for 3 days by himself. He'd come back dehydrated because he didn't have enough water, having eaten peanut butter and crackers for 3 days, and dirty and sweaty and tired and hungry. And the first thing he did when he got back, before he did anything else, was clean his rifle. That's what he did, the first thing, very first thing.
Well, he understood what kept him alive. And if you take care of your rifle, it will take care of you. He understood that in a deep way. Carlos was a natural student of human beings. And, you know, when I had him for an instructor, I was a young man, and I was kind of in awe of him because he was a little guy. He wasn't very big. He wasn't terribly athletic. He was very skinny looking. He looked like the little kids that ran cross country in high school, but with an old man's face. And he had health issues, and he didn't have a lot of muscle to him and stuff, but he was incredibly observant. I noticed when I met him how quickly his eyes would move from one thing to another. And one of his gifts in the field was he was able to read the wind and pay attention to the natural terrain. It's a situation where this branch is moving and it meant something to Carlos. This grass is bent a certain way and it meant something to Carlos. He took everything in the natural environment. He was able to track more of these things at one time than the average person, and he made some phenomenal wind calls in his career. Probably the thing that I learned most from Carlos, probably of the most value, I would have to say would be that his dedication to getting the job done. This guy had an amazing sense of duty, and he felt like if he didn't do his job, that other people were going to die. And so for Carlos, failure was not an option. That's a cliche, but for Carlos, it was real. Failure was not an option, and he took training young men very seriously, and it was difficult to get a smile on his face. And all of the people that were trained by Carlos, they wanted to please him because at the time, he was a legend. When I met Carlos and had him as an instructor, he was a legend in the 1980s. He was already one of the 3 most famous snipers in U.S. history. And to have him for an instructor, you were just like, oh boy, I better not screw this up. And he was very intimidating to the younger guys.
I recall he was given intelligence about a North Vietnamese general was going to be at a certain location protected by dozens of armed men walking patrol, and he had to crawl on his side. He called it, he had a certain name for that technique he developed, where he would slide on his side rather than on his belly to make a less of an impact on the grass. And he had to go across quite a distance of this grass, what was being patrolled by armed men, in order to get in just the position to shoot this North Vietnamese general, which of course he did, get in that position, take the shot, and kill the general. But he would do whatever it took, wouldn't he?
Yeah, it was an interesting thing to listen to him talk about human behavior and how people early in the morning and late in the evening, he said that he used a country phrase called lollygagging. I guess he learned that from his dad or his grandfather when he wasn't working hard as a young boy. But he used to say in class, I remember him saying, he'd say, yeah, you catch them lollygagging in the morning and in the evening. That's when they're not paying attention. and we, of course, we're taking notes when Carlos speaks. We're writing as fast as we could write. But we had some fun. There was a night where they had us out shooting all day in this training, and it was hot in the desert of Paulden, Arizona. And we get in our tents to go to sleep, and they roused us out of our tents at 1 a.m. to go shoot moving targets in the dark. And I shot a little 5-shot group on a mover target at 400 meters. And one of the instructors, Neil Terry, walked up and he shined his flashlight on the group, and he looked at me with the funniest look on his face, and he said, "Did you shoot a lot of birds and stuff? Did you pheasant and quail hunt a lot as a young man?" And I said, "No, but I've thrown a lot of footballs to receivers that run pretty fast." And he said, "Carlos, you're going to want to look at this." And Carlos walked over there, and Neil had his light shining on the target, but that wasn't good enough. Carlos pulled his own light out of his pocket, and he pushed Neil out of the way, and he got a close look at the target. And I'll never forget this. It's one of my proudest moments as a student. He looked up at Neil Terry, and he said, "That son of a bitch ever points a rifle at me, remind me to hold still."
Well, that would be a moment to be proud of.
Neil laughed out loud, and I smiled. And, of course, Carlos didn't smile when he said that. He just turned around and walked away.
Right.
It wasn't funny to Carlos. He almost wondered, where he was at, because he was a hard guy to read. He stayed within himself, where some of the instructors, after a few weeks, they would open up a little bit to you. You could learn a little bit about him, but Carlos was in a pretty hard shell. He was a pretty hard guy to understand. He was pretty quiet. I guess he talked to the other instructors a lot more openly than he did the students, but I did have some exposure with him. I learned some really valuable lessons, and in our eyes, the guy was a straight-up hero, and not because of his sniping, not because of his 95 kills. Carlos was in what we call an LVT-5, and it hit a mine, and the mine blew up, and it lit the vehicle on fire, and he pulled 5 young Marines out of this vehicle, and it eventually cost him his life. It was that incident where he was burned severely, his nervous system was damaged, he eventually developed some nerve system problems and just debilitated over time. But it was a heroic thing that he did, and in my eyes, that guy should be a Congressional Medal of Honor winner, 3 times over. But that act where he went back into a burning vehicle 4 times after pulling one guy out, he went back into a hot burning vehicle and continued to allow himself to be burned, to pull men out and save their lives. It's one of the most heroic acts that I've ever heard of. And it's one thing to dive into a burning car and pull one person out. It's a whole nother thing to go back into that vehicle after you've been burned 3 seconds before. And he did that over and over and over again and saved 5 young Marine lives. And for that, I think people consider him a true hero.
Oh, absolutely. I'm aware of that incident, and it is ultimately what cost him his life was the injuries he suffered during that incident. I would suspect the man had all his remaining life constant pain and discomfort as a consequence of those injuries. What do you think?
Well, he absolutely was in pain because of that. And, when we watched him move into the classroom and out of the classroom and out on the range, you could tell even in the mid-1980s that he was not really 100%. Now, his mind was sharp as a tack, but you could tell his body had paid a tremendous price. And it was tough to watch because, we all considered him a hero even back in the 80s without the book, without the legend and all the stories being told. And I got to tell you this, he worked in Vietnam with a guy named Captain Land. And I was with Major General Hollingsworth. After 9/11, I got sent to the Pentagon to work for a while. And I was with Major General Hollingsworth, and he took me to a restaurant called the Globe and Anchor in Virginia. And we sat down and ate dinner with some chief warrant officers, some CW05s, and a couple of politicians, and we had a great dinner, and everybody had a great time. But towards the end of dinner, Major General Hollingsworth stood up. He said, "Come here, young man, I've got somebody I want you to meet. Follow me." And we walked to the back of the restaurant of the Globe and Anchor, and there was Captain Land sitting there eating dinner. And General Hollingsworth knew him. They were friends, and I didn't know that. He never told me. And so he walked me back there, and he said to Captain Land, he said, "Captain, I got somebody for you to meet right here." And he said, "This is Sam Andrews," and he said, "This is Captain Land." He knew a friend of yours, an instructor of yours named Carlos Hathcock. And I was standing there looking at this guy, and I was like, "Holy cow, I'm looking at a legend." It was unbelievable. It was just the coolest thing that Hollingsworth ever did for me. But it was a lot of fun to meet him and talk to him for a few minutes.
Absolutely. Well, we could use a few more Carlos Hathcocks today, couldn't we, sir?
Yeah, that's what the Freedom Center exists for. We're going to start producing marksmen like you wouldn't believe next year. We're going to have a much more active program. The range has gotten more developed. We added, for this latest match, we added another $4,000 worth of steel targets. I mean, we're building a tower. We now have a structure, a plan. We're going to build a 100-foot platform, and we're going to take this ready-made tower that's 50 feet tall and mount it on top of that. So we'll have 150 foot of vertical to shoot from, to rappel from, to climb on the inside. We're going to string these heavy-duty nets below the tower as safety devices. So when if you fall or you take a fall or you make a mistake, you don't pay with your life. You just land in a net, get up and try again. It's going to be a lot of fun.
It will be, and I'm looking forward to climbing and rappelling that tower myself. That'll just be a lot of fun. Would it be done by July, by any chance? Do you think? Is that possible?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Now, that could get accelerated if we got some donations or a little bit of cash. We could probably do it we could probably have it done by July of next year. But our cash flow strategy right now, I'm thinking sometime between the beginning of October and the end of November next year, we should be in pretty good shape.
Yeah. The reason I ask about July, I've got 13-year-old twins, boy and a girl, that'll be here, and they would love. They do climbing and rappelling already, so they would love to do something like that.
Well, John, you kick in $30,000, I'll have it done in May.
Well, we can talk privately.
Okay, fantastic.
Okay. There's different ways to skin cats. So this is Farmers Money. If you got a question or comment, anything to do with rifles, shotguns, pistols, training, ammunition, optics, legislation, the gun culture, give us a call at 800-313-9443. These stories about youngsters and petite women using firearms competently, successfully, or at least I hope they will motivate the full-grown, healthy men out there and the healthy adult women as well to do these things, to get some training above and beyond whatever they may or may not have right now, and become marksmen that can be counted on to defend freedom and defend liberty, right?
That's exactly right. And, we don't talk about this much on the show, but the mission statement for the Freedom Center is to provide a facility where Americans can come and train and work on the skills that preserve freedom. That's literally why we call it the Freedom Center. We are in existence for the very purpose of training American citizens on how to preserve freedom, to give them the skills that will allow us to preserve freedom that we have in this country at all costs. And that's why we exist. And so if you're interested in learning these skills, and it doesn't matter if it's concealed carry or long-range marksmanship or tactical marksmanship or CQB warfare or prepping, if you want to learn about cold weather survival, you want to learn any of these types of skills, we train people in these things at the Freedom Center. And so just give us a call. We'll set up a class for you and your group. And we travel even, like I'm going to Florida here in about 6 weeks to train a bunch of long-range marksmen. And our instructors travel. So if you can't make it to the Freedom Center, there's a good chance we can send a absolute world-class instructor to your location and train you at your facility. So, we exist to push knowledge down the chain. We want people learning how things work, how things operate, how to survive, how to preserve freedom.
Well, gentlemen and ladies listening, you might be a competent marksman to accomplish whatever goals you've had in the past. But unless you've been to the Freedom Center, you probably simply don't know. I walked in the door a week ago Saturday looking for instruction, and the first half hour I learned more than I've learned the past half century. I'm an NRA certified rifle instructor. I scored expert with the rifle in the Army, and I've been shooting since Eisenhower was president. Within the first half hour, I learned how to properly hold the rifle, which I didn't know before. I learned how to properly clean the rifle, which I didn't know before, and other basic foundational pieces of knowledge that almost nobody has unless they've been to the Freedom Center. Right, Sam?
That is true. We had a U.S. Army sniper instructor in our competition, in our tactical match this weekend. And he told me a story after the match. He said, "I'm so glad you showed me how to clean this rifle this way, because I had 3 of my buddies up over Thanksgiving weekend, and they're all U.S. Army snipers. And they all brought their guns, and we did some shooting out at your range. You know that. But when I showed them how to clean their rifles, they were stunned. And I said, well, what do you mean? He said, well, they cleaned their guns. And they looked at me like, what are you doing? And I said, oh, just let me finish my gun. And one of the guys said to him, well, here. He said, this is how we clean. And he said, that's not how I clean anymore. Sam taught me how to clean my rifle, and this is how I do it. And they got into an argument about how to clean their rifle. These 2 Army snipers did.
Right.
And so the guy that I taught how to clean, he looked at his buddy and he said, are you done cleaning that thing? And the guy said, yeah. And he said, well, here, let me clean it. He said, it's already clean. You're not going to get anything out of that barrel. And so my buddy that I trained, he took the gun from him and cleaned it. And when he ran that JBs through that gun and pulled that patch out, and it was dark black with stuff caked all over it, he said the look on his buddy's face, he said they were shocked.
Of course
he said they couldn't even believe their guns were that dirty.
Of course they were. We got a break. Call numbers 800-313-9443. All right, we're back, ladies and gentlemen. We're back. J.R. Moore here on Firearms Monday, the 9th day of December. The John Moore Patriot Symposium Cruise leaves Port Orlando precisely 2 months from today. It will be a lot of fun, the John Moore Patriot Symposium Cruise. It will be romantic if you choose it to be. Details at my website at thelibertyman.com. If you want our cruise director, Betsy Murphy, to send you a nice full-color brochure, give her a call at 636-530-9502. This is Firearms Monday, visiting with Sam Andrews, the proprietor of Freedom Center USA. The telephone number down there in beautiful Lebanon, Missouri is 417-718-2597. Let's continue, Sam.
I think we were talking a little bit about Carlos Hathcock. You know, when you read his book, and I'm sure a lot of people have read his book, and there'll be more read it, but when you read his book, I marvel at what he did, not just because he was courageous and because he was naturally heroic in certain situations, but I marvel at what he did because he did it with tools from the 1960s. His sniper rifle was a chrome moly barrel. It was in a receiver that wasn't fitted very well to the barrel. He had a wood stock, that was subject to the moisture of the jungle. So every morning and every afternoon, that thing's swelling and contracting. He had optics that didn't really have, excellent control. And this guy found a way to hit targets at 600, 700, 800 yards with a scope and a system that I wouldn't want to shoot at 300 yards.
Well,
he was amazing.
Right. That scope did not even have internal adjustments. Had external adjustments. Was developed by a World War I sniper who I met at an NRA convention, Mr. Unitil. Those scopes are all in museums now, quite frankly, aren't they?
Well, yeah, and a lot of them are. I saw one at the Bench Rest Rifle Club about 8 years ago out on a bench. The guy was shooting it. And,
no kidding. Really?
Yeah, it was interesting to go over and take a look at the design. But, Carlos shot several different optics during his career. He shot the Unerto. He shot a Redfield. I think he shot a Leopold, depending on what deployment and what time period he was out in the jungle. But pick anything. Pick anything he used back then. If you gave him a modern rifle that I hand-built today with a Night Force scope, and the type of ammo that we have loaded on Lapua brass with projectiles that are perfectly balanced, and this guy would be deadly at 2,800 yards. I mean, he would be something to behold with modern equipment in his hands.
Well, there's no doubt about that whatsoever. Now, 2,800 yards would be considerably longer than a mile.
Yes.
In fact,
a mile is 1,000.
Yeah.
A mile is 1,760 yards. 2,800 yards is well past a mile and a half.
He did attach a scope to a 50 caliber machine gun and did some sniping with it also, didn't he?
Yes, and one of the guys asked him to tell the story in sniper school. After the course that we took, after our training, sniper training, we got to sit in a room for 3 hours with Carlos Hathcock, and the students got to ask him questions about sniping. And one of the students said, "Sir, would you mind going over that long shot you took with a 50 cal? You had a kill in your book that was a long shot with a 50 BMG. Would you mind talking about that?" And he said, "Nah." He goes, "That was luck." He goes, He goes, he was bent over in this rice paddy, crouched down, and I shot, and I missed high, and he stood up right as that bolt was flying through the air. It was in the air over 2 seconds, and he stood up, and he caught that bullet right in the head, and that was pure luck. I ain't gonna talk about that. And we all just we're just looking at him like, you could never tell what this guy was gonna say. The students were always he always kept you off guard with anything he did.
Amazing. Absolutely amazing. What a guy. What a guy. Well, like I said, I wish I could have met him, but I didn't have the opportunity. I did get to meet Roy Benavides and had lunch with him a few years ago. Roy passed away also from injuries he received in Vietnam, Medal of Honor winner, Green Beret. Yeah. Well, we're going to have new heroes coming out of whatever's coming up ahead of us, won't we, sir?
Yeah, we will. We're gonna have people that are gonna stand up, and they're gonna put their life on the line, and they're gonna do the right thing. And we're training some of them out here at the Freedom Center right now. We've got real Americans. Their fathers were in the military. Their grandfathers were in the military. Their great-grandfathers served their country. And these guys are not gonna break. They're not gonna be broken. Failure's not an option to these men. They're going to get the job done, and they've got the skills and the tools to do it. And we train more of them every month. And, I don't think these globalists have any idea what we've got in store for them. But, no. I hope we can solve these problems peacefully. But if we can't, I'm not that worried. I think the good guys are going to win again.
No, most of these elites, if they're around farms at all, they may go on a big game hunt where the big game is basically pets, or maybe shoot some skeet or shoot some ducks. That's about as much as they know about firearms. We have about an hour break. We'll be right back.
You are tuned in to the Republic Broadcasting Network. Visit our website by going to republicbroadcasting.org.
Tired of being lied to by mass media? It's growing more and more apparent today that news is received less and less through standard media outlets. Even with a growing audience every day, RBN is beginning to direct more efforts into social media. Social media and the use of the internet is fast becoming the primary source of people for news, regardless of demographic. RBN has set out to provide some of the best news on the internet through republicbroadcasting.org, and also has begun to use the tools to our advantage by way of social media. Republic Broadcasting is now operating a Facebook page to function as yet another avenue to have our collective voice reach new audiences across not only America, but across the globe as well. The Facebook page features not only news, but also an RBN player to listen to our broadcasts. Get involved by visiting facebook.com/Republic Broadcasting and liking our page and share it with your friends and family, because you can handle the truth.
All right, we are back, ladies and gentlemen. Jerry Moore here on Monday, the 12th day of December. My website is thelibertyman.com. We've got a project that begins its fourth year here in a few weeks. This is something that involves all my listeners. It's finding images in movies and TV shows, images of continents with different coastlines, new coastlines. It's a lot of fun. The list keeps growing longer. If you're watching a movie or TV show and you see a continent with a different coastlines, new coastlines, get that screen capture to me. You get your choice of any of my 6 DVDs as a thank you. Let's keep that list growing. It's a lot of fun, and we got all the ones that have been found, of course, are posted at my website for you to look at. So check those out. Also, my website, of course, if you want to get past the arthritis pain, get your life back, get yourself an energy cleaner. What are you waiting for? I've got energy cleaners in stock. I got mattress pads in stock, ready to ship. And what a great gift for somebody to get their life back get relief from arthritis pain, joint pain, back pain, sleep as good as a small child every night like I do. Details at my website at thelibertyman.com, where you can place your order using PayPal, MasterCard, Visa. You can call my toll-free hotline 24 hours a day. Here it is, 800-592-9543. I say again, 800-592-9543. This is Firearms Monday. Visiting with Sam Andrews, the proprietor of Freedom Center USA. That telephone number down there is 417-718-2597. Well, there's no telling how many future Carlos Hathcocks we have, both in civilians and in the military, right, Sam?
There are a bunch, and that's happened in the military at several levels, I remember sitting with General Hollingsworth and asking him about George Patton and what kind of a leader he was and what kind of a strategist he was on the battlefield. And, of course, General Hollingsworth said that General Patton was a genius. He said he was an absolute genius with heavy mechanized stuff. And I asked him, do we have anybody today that is the equivalent of a George Patton from the 1940s? And he got a big smile on his face. He said, actually, we've got about 9 just in the Marine Corps. And I said, really? He said, yeah, and we got one guy that's not actually a general yet, but he may be the best of the lot. He's a colonel right now, and his name is Mattis. And he was talking about Mad Dog as a full bird colonel. He goes, that guy might be smarter than the 8 best we've got at the flag officer level right now. It was a really interesting conversation, and in the same sense, we had Carlos Hathcock back in the 60s. But we've got guys now. We got SOTIC qualified guys in the Army, and we've got guys on the SEAL teams and Marine Corps snipers and hard target interdiction snipers that can do things that Carlos Hathcock couldn't do. And they're better at reading the wind, and they have better equipment, and they understand more about shot selection. And probably the only thing that, I'm not really sure from a field craft standpoint how many are better than Carlos at stalking, because that guy was gifted in that area. He was something else,
Right. We got a caller on hold. We got James in North Carolina. Good morning, James.
Good morning, fellas. How y'all doing?
Real good. What's on your mind,
fantastic.
James?
I was just I called last week about shotguns and stuff, long-range shotgun shooting and stuff. The thing, I'm not a guru at it. I'm learning about that, learning about shotguns and stuff like that. And if you've got one, you need to learn to pattern it and reload and, just learn what your gun likes. I just wanted to clarify that. But my statement, what I was really calling to tell y'all about is, have y'all, I know both of you kind of do reloading to a point. Have y'all ever had any experience with the lead loaders?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Inherently, if you reload or want to develop a load, you buy you one in your particular caliber. They're excellent for working loads up at the range.
Yeah, the lead loaders they're small and they're compact and they're light. So if you have a small cartridge and you've got really good dies that are slick and you don't need a lot of force to size with, or you're traveling to the range and you want something light and compact, the Lee loader will work okay. We prefer the Hornady lock and load or the Axis press. We think we get more concentric ammo out of those than the Lee loader, but the Lee loader is a great thing to have in your kit if you're going to travel from range to range and load on the spot.
I was just thinking about that, and I think a lot of your listeners need to know about that. If you search for them, you can find just about any caliber you want, and they're really meant for a bolt action or a single shot rifle or a lever action. As far as semi-automatics, they don't do too well with them. because they're just neck sizing dies. They're not a whole case die. They don't resize the whole die. They just redo the neck. And I've got one for every caliber I've got.
Yes. So what he's talking about is a die, and it's a system where you can force the die over the brass, knock the primer out, and it will resize the neck, but it doesn't bump the shoulder and it doesn't size the body. So it won't work well in a semi-auto. It will work in a bolt gun environment. We don't really recommend those these days because of the modern brass, like Lapua, that works so well. We like to full-length size and bump the shoulder a little over 1/1000th of an inch, very slightly, but still give it a little bit of a bump. And then neck size all at the same time with a bushing in the die. And so we think for accuracy that system works better. The old bench rest shooters used to use this system just to neck size. And if you turned your necks and had the right clearance, it worked reasonably well in a bolt gun environment where you could cam the brass into position. But in modern firearms, we really like the full length size, slight bump of the shoulder, and control the neck tension with a bushing, and you'll find better accuracy.
Oh, I agree with you. I do both. Regular old bench, with full 4-die set. But as far as just like if you've got one gun, and it's an old bolt action or a single shot or even a lever action, some of your listeners might want to look into those because you can reload a round in less than a minute.
Well, Jim, we got Lee Loaders on Amazon for $37.91 delivered to your door. They're very inexpensive.
Yeah, and if you go on eBay, you can find oddball calibers too.
Yes, so it's an inexpensive way to get into reloading for a bolt gun, and it would probably work reasonably well on a lever gun as well.
Yes, fellas, I'm gonna let y'all go. I didn't mean to hijack the conversation, but
no, not at all.
I figured a lot of
call. Thank you, James.
I figured a lot of your customers would like it. I mean, listeners. All right, bye.
There's lots of subtleties and nuances and different ways these discussions can always go, isn't there, Sam?
Well, sure. I mean, people want to call in. That's great. I like to hear what people are doing out there. What they're interested in, what tools they're using. My grandfather used to tell me you can tell a craftsman by the tools that he carries, and so. If you understand what tools people are using to get a certain job done, it teaches you a little bit about their skill level, about what they're working on, what they're interested in. I think that's a great thing.
It is. It is, absolutely. Well, getting back to the major premise here of Firearms Monday is to encourage people to train. Right, Sam?
Yes. Don't be afraid to go to the range and practice. Get some ammo. Get to the range, find a place where you can work on shooting movers, and start to put tools in your toolbox and build your skill level. And I tell you, if a 10-year-old girl can hit a moving target at 300, so can you. You just got to get out and practice. You got to learn what the leads are. And I guess at 300 yards, the lead is about 9 inches with a modern rifle on a walking target at 300. At 800 yards, we had some hits yesterday. At 800 yards on movers, I think it was Derek Seen that made the first hit at 800, and I think he said his lead was right around 2 mils, which would be real close to 7 minutes.
And how far would 7 minutes be at that distance?
7 minutes. 57 inches, 56, 57 inches of lead.
That's a long lead. That's a long lead. Yeah.
Yeah, I think almost.
Not quite
I think
5
I'm
feet.
right at 5. You're right at 5 feet. right in that area. You're on a walking target at 800, right around 5 feet. Now that's with a modern cartridge that's running 3,000 feet a second with a really slick boat tail bullet. So if you're shooting a 30-06 with a flat base bullet, your lead's going to be a lot more than that. And if you're shooting something faster like a 30 Wolf, your lead's going to be significantly less than that, more like 5 MOA.
So we're looking at about 3 feet instead of 5 feet?
Yeah, you're looking right at about 2.5 to 3 feet with the super high performance cartridges.
Right. And the 30 caliber Wolf is a caliber that you developed yourself.
Yes, that's a big case with 120 grains of capacity, and it shoots a big boat tail really fast.
And if somebody wanted a rifle built in, if somebody wants a rifle built in that, they can just give you a call, can't they?
I build them all the time. I actually built one last week for a guy named Vic, and it's a beautiful thing.
Well, I saw the Vic take delivery. That looked like a kid getting a bicycle on Christmas morning. He was so happy.
That was the gun. Hey, look who just walked into my office. I got Will Powell sitting here. He just walked in and sat down. I think you know Will, don't you?
Of course I do. He and I served in Special Forces together, and he's a very good friend. Well, that's good. And Will, good morning, sir.
Good morning, John. How are you?
Really good, really good. Well, you walked in on Firearms Monday. I don't know if that was by design or not, but welcome aboard. Will was our light weapon. Was it light weapons or heavy weapons? Heavy weapons, wasn't it, on our A-team?
It was light weapons and heavy
light weapons. Okay. We got a photograph we all cherish of Will being asleep with his M60 all curled up with his M60 machine gun there, Sam, on a training operation.
Well, John, I got to wonder about any guy that would take a photo of a good man with his fiancée. You know, that just doesn't right.
Well, we do things different in Special Forces. What can we say? You know, we do.
Well, Will was out at the range yesterday in the tactical match running our psychological exercise. We had a target identification, target ranging distraction exercise where we put targets across a meadow into the trees, and we took this thing and we mounted targets that were bright orange, that were fairly obvious, and then we mounted targets back farther away that were camouflaged, and then we took the bright targets and we lined up ribbons to catch your eye, bright fluorescent ribbons, and then to the other side, where there were no targets, we put more ribbons to distract guys. And we gave them 60 seconds to identify all the targets and shoot them. And it was amazing how much time they spent. And Will could talk about it. He was there. But so, Will, what were slowing these guys up on this particular exercise?
Well, one of the main things is you've got to shoot from a 42 by 42 inch square. So you have to set up inside that square. And
that square is too small to go prone, right?
Yes. Even for me.
So everybody did what? They went to a sitting position?
They went to a sitting position, and they were having a hard time setting up, trying to get a mount on their rifle properly, and then they started having weapons malfunctions right and left. So it was a little bit of chaos, but I had the Army sniper. He came in, and he was very professional. He was on target, I'd say, within 18 seconds, and he was jamming on through. I had some hunters that were there, Mr. Derrick, and I was expecting a lot out of him because of all his hunting experience and stuff, and he did really well, really well. He was very impressive. I could see if he'd had a little bit of more training about setting up in a small square, he'd have probably gave that sniper from the Army a good run for his money, but he didn't do bad.
So I'm curious, how did the distraction work? Because we were kind of going back and forth setting up the stage the day before about how much work we wanted to put on creating distractions. Did the distractions work at all? Did some people take the bait and spend time looking for targets in the distraction areas?
Those that were able to sight through their scope and not focus on what was going on inside their little square were able to identify a few of the objects that were out there, but they didn't get them all. I had to laugh at the Army sniper because we had a rope hanging down from a limb, and after everything was done, I asked him, how much time did you ever walk through a swamp? And he kind of looked at me kind of funny. I said, "You're going to tell me you couldn't see a snake in a limb at 25 yards?" And he was really embarrassed at that point.
Right. Well, we took a rope and coiled it around a limb as an item of tactical significance, and I think our Army sniper, he found the ammo box, but he didn't find the rope, and the rope was white. I mean, it was pretty obvious. So that was so he was a little bit like, oh man, I should have seen that one.
Yeah.
Sounds like you guys had more fun than you deserved yesterday.
We did.
Oh, I should have been there. We got a break. We'll be right back. All right, we are back, ladies and gentlemen. This is Firearms Monday. J.R. Moore here on Monday, the 9th day of December, visiting with Sam Andrews and Dr. Will Powell, who is a veteran U.S. Army Special Forces and U.S. Navy SEALs, and does, in fact, have a PhD, Dr. Powell, don't you?
Yes, I do.
Okay. I know you don't talk about it much, but you do. Well, Sam, this was a pleasant surprise to have Will there, and you had a great time over the weekend, and there's going to be a lot more great weekends coming up in 2020, won't there, sir?
Yes, sir. The matches keep growing, and we're gonna keep expanding the tests that we provide for these marksmen in the matches. And we got some good compliments from the competitors yesterday. Our U.S. Army sniper instructor felt like we tested just about every fundamental issue you need to test as a marksman. He said the one thing that we didn't test was we didn't test the physical endurance of the competitors. He wanted to see us run the guys harder and make their heart rate come up before they shot. And, I told him with civilians in the match, they can PT on their own time. We don't have to work them out here. We're more interested in them developing the skills first, and then seeing the value of developing physically and being in better shape. And it was a great weekend. I mean, we had a lot of really fun moments and a lot of interesting times. And we had one guy challenge the scoring of his target, and we drove him back down to the North Meadow at the range, and we had him look at the board up close, standing 5 feet away, and it was really interesting to see the shock on his face when he thought he broke this target and he actually hit the wrong one. And to see him realize that. And, under stress, under time constraints, when you're being pressed, it's easy to make mistakes. You can get in your scope, you can see a target, you can make a little adjustment, the scope makes a little wobble, and you come back on something that looks like your target and you shoot it and you find out later it's not the right target, that you made a mistake. And so going through these exercises is great discipline for these young men, learning how to control their rifles and make sure they get it right the first time.
Absolutely. Well, that's what they need. They need lots of it, don't they?
Oh, yeah. There's no substitute for repetitive practice when it comes to marksmanship.
Well, I know I'll be doing a lot of dry fire practice. I've got some snap caps. I'll be getting some more because running that bolt is a technique I need to get down and don't have down yet. And it takes hundreds of repetitions to get a technique to work. It just becomes part of your muscle memory, doesn't it?
Yeah, usually on the bolt thing, we tell people, you're going to practice this for 15 minutes, maybe 3 or 4 times over the course of a couple of weeks, and it's going to feel awkward every time to run the bolt the way we teach you to. But when you get to about the 7th practice session, you're going to nail everything perfectly, and you're going to realize how fast and efficient it is to do it the way we teach. And all of a sudden it starts to feel natural about the 7th or 8th practice session, and then you'll never go back to the old way of doing things.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, that's my goal is to get that technique down and have it just become part of me and part of my muscle memory. Well, that's great. Well, it's a pleasant surprise having Will jump in there. And thank you, Will, for coming on board. And Sam, thank you. We're just about out of time here. Any final comment? Well, we make it quick.
Absolutely, John. Remember, everybody, to